So, welcome, Bochim Abayim, Chavrim, and Shabbat Shalom to all of you all. Very warm welcome to everyone, and it's good to see all of you all cheerful and life, full of life, lachaim to everybody. today is uh, today is a special day because we're going to have a very special teaching, and I'm going to be a little more elaborate, combining a lot of parshas, jumping from different parshas, uh, because it's very extensive. And I want to also dedicate this today's thing to Chaim Topol, who made the full world laugh. A brilliant Jew, a proud Jew, a man who was full of life, full of life. Okay, so to him, there's a lot of our Talmidim who had our birthdays. Nana, who's had a birthday this week. May God bless you. God uh, continue to use you for His glory, and God bless your life, which has been remarkable. And if there's anybody's birthdays and anniversaries who have missed out, please forgive me. I don't know, but have a wonderful day. So today we are in a different parsha. Today when we are in Parsha Ki Tissa, friends. Now Ki Tissa is a pendulum, and it's the most important parsha in the book of Exodus and the book of Shemot. And we will come to know why, because Parsha Ki Tissa is the culmination of the giving of the Kabbalat Torah, giving of the Torah. And we will study, we will learn. I'm going to take a long time today. It's not going to be 1 hour. Get ready, it's going to be more than an hour today, maybe an hour and a half. And if you'll have the capacity to sit and to listen, please do stay on, or you can watch the recording later. Ki Tissa, as to why I'm saying it's a very, very important parsha, it's because there is a story that happens in Ki Tissa, a very unnerving story, a very misunderstood story, not easily grasped in the human by the human mind very easily. You need a lot of study, a lot of dedication, a lot of guidance to understand the story of the Egel Zahav. Nevertheless, I want to first touch on the flow, the mazal of what we've been doing since Shemot, right? Shemot starts with the 12 tribes. They grow into a populous nation. Then Parshat Bo, where God says, come, let's talk to Pharaoh, right? Then Beshalach. Then we have uh, Yitro, Pasha Yitro, where they actually come out of Egypt and they are at Mount Sinai, and God is giving them the Torah at Mount Sinai, and God tells Moses, come up. And Moses is on top of the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights, and God is revealing everything to him from right from Mishpatim, Tetzaveh, and now Ki Tissa, and in between Terumah also. So we have Mishpatim, we have Terumah, okay, Tetzaveh, and now Ki Tissa, and God is still giving the Torah to Moses. So Ki Tissa is the end point of giving of the Torah, and at the end of the Torah, something happens to the event at Mount Sinai, which is the Egel Zahab, and we're going to touch upon that. So this is the general flow. Now, what happens in Parasha Yitro? Parasha Yitro, they're standing at the mountain. God descends on the mountain, he's speaking to them, he's giving them the Torah, and they tell Moses, Moses, we are afraid of our lives. You take the Torah and you give it to us. We will do it and we will listen and we will follow. And then Mishpatim, all the laws and the guidelines or the Mishpat or the Shafa that's got to do with one human being treating another human being, and the interpersonal laws that can become law judicious in its outlook. Then we come to Terumah, where the Lev Nadiv, where the willing heart is coming to give gold and silver and crimson and stones and precious stones and all these things all put together to build the Mishkan in the desert. And there are a whole lot of things out there that we but we had a very different outlook at Pasha Terumah at that point of time. Nevertheless, I do have to jump back to Terumah because a lot of the study is going to be there. I need to connect Terumah, Tetzaveh, and Ki Tissa as one bundle. Okay, so we're going to keep jumping from different portions of all these three. Very, very important. So that's Terumah, where the Mishkan was laid out, the dimensions were given, what needs to be done, what colors need to be done, how it needs to be built. Everything was given to Moses. Then after that, in Parshat Tetzaveh, God was dealing with Moses and telling them about the sanctification of the Kohen Hagadol, Aaron, his sons, and the Levites, and the separation and the sanctification for all of them. And then the theme of Parshat Tetzaveh was the Bigdei Kehuna, the priestly garments, right, for glory and for honor and for perfection and for lights that resembled garments in the spiritual realm, priestly garments, kingly garments. Now we are in Pasha Ki Tissa. So, shall all have your Bibles? Please turn with me to Pasha Ki Tissa, and we're going to read. I think it's from chapter 30 onwards. Ki Tissa, chapter 30 of Shmot, verse 11 onwards. Verse 11 onwards. So if you all have your Hebrew Bibles or your Safari open, or even the English Bible, KJV preferred, please do open that, because you're going to study something from that. It says out here, Vaidaber Adonai el Moshe lemor, ki tisa et rosh bene Israel le pikudim venathanu ish choper venafshu la Adonai bepoched otam velo Adonai bahem negef bepoched otam. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, when you shall take a census of the children of Israel, according to their counts, according to the heads, the word count or rosh, according to the heads, every man shall give Hashem an atonement for his soul when counting them, and there will be no plague among them when you're counting each one of them. Very simple English, right? So if you're reading this in the KJV, it says, when you pick up the heads of the tribes of the children of Israel, they will all give, you take a census of them, so that when the counting, you will count the money that's coming in, but not count the heads, because otherwise a plague will come in. But if you look very carefully, this is not a simple explanation for this. The simple explanation for this is that God is saying, when you take a census of the people, and you will choose leaders from the people who will become Rosh, who will become heads, and you will take spiritual responsibility for them, for the people, who is able to stand in the gap and take responsibility for his tribe, for his family, and for everybody around him. Because if he's not able to take responsibility, he cannot be the head of the tribe. That kind of person who's full of self-sacrifice, who's able to sacrifice for himself, for the tribe, you will elevate, and you will take a census of that. And so they will look after the tribes who is under their control and who's under their care and guidance. That's the true meaning of this. Anyway, so when this happens, they have to give, half a shekel, each one of them, because they're worthy of saying, my tribe, I will give my life for. This is the sense of what the Torah is actually telling us out there. Okay. Then it goes on to say, everyone who passes among the counted from age of 20 years and above shall give the portion to the Lord. The wealthy shall not increase, and the destitute shall not decrease half the shekel. This is not a taxation. This is not a taxation. Everyone from top, the poor and the rich, had to give half a shekel, because That half shekel is yours, and the other half shekel is your neighbor and is your brother's. Please understand this. It is corporate, social, spiritual responsibility for everyone. And this is what we really don't understand from the Torah and the Bible. We have come to understand or have evolved an understanding that every person is only for himself. And it's only important for you and God. But that's not what the Torah says. The Torah says that your life and your salvation is dependent not only on your relationship with the eternal, but with the people around you. So you give half that redemption money, so he gives half, and then it becomes a whole. This is avut, spiritual responsibility that is ingrained into the Torah. So the Torah is not about individualism. Torah is about responsibility with each other. Very, very important. Okay, so this is how this Torah portion starts, right? And then he gives the instructions of making the kior, the pot, the brazen laver, and about the mizbeach, and about the incense altar, and all those things. And then when we jump to 31 is the bulk of what we're going to talk about today. Okay, so when we jump to chapter 31, it says, now, if you all have notebooks and pens and pads, please write down what we're going to study today. It's very, very important. I am also going to use the screen and write it down for you all, but it's very, very important. Okay, chapter 31, verse 1. Vaidaber Adonai el Moshe le'amor. Rosh karahati b'shem Betzalel ben Uri ben Hur lamathe Yehuda. Ve'amale otho ruach Elohim בחוכמה ובתבונה ובדעת ובכל מלאכה. לחשב מחשבות לעשות בזהב ובכסף ובנחשת. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Re, see, I have singled out by name Bezalel, son of Uri, son of Hur, of the tribe of Yehuda, and I have filled him with a godly spirit, with wisdom, with understanding, and with knowledge, and the ability to build. Tevuna comes from the word bone, building. Okay, benot, bone. Tevuna simply means who's able to see structure, form, design, architecture. He's been filled with this. For every type of work, to make makshevot, to make calculations, to work with gold and with silver and with copper, and in the craft of stone cutting for filling, and in the craft of wood carving to do every type of work. And then it says, and I, behold, I've put with him Oholiav, son of Ahismach, of the tribe of Dan, and into the heart of all who are wise of heart I have put wisdom, and they shall do all that I have commanded you. The tent of meeting and the Aaron for the testimony and the lid that is upon it, and all the implements of the tent. Okay, so this is what's happened now. So we've come through all that stuff. We have come to this place now where God is telling Moses, he's telling Moshe, and now to assist you in your work, right? To take things forward. You are a leader of people. I don't want you to be an artisan. I don't want you to be somebody who's working with your hands. Appointed this guy by the name of Bethsaida, the tribe of Yahud, and I have filled him with everything necessary from wisdom, knowledge, understanding, and the skill to build. And to assist him, Oholiav is a person also who's going to assist him, and they are going to build the physical Mishkan, which I'm giving you. Now, very important, 40 days and 40 nights, Moshe is on the mountain, and God is telling him, giving him the entire instructions of everything. How do I build the tent? How do I build the Mishkan? What are the dimensions of the Mishkan? What its purpose? How is it going to be used? Then the Kehuna, the priesthood, and everything put together. He's getting everything for 40 days and 40 nights of there. In this, in these two verses, it gives you the full secret of the Mishkan and the full secret of something else, which I'm going to show you today. Okay. Now, if I take the first verse, Vaidaber Adonai el Moshe Le'amor. And if I count every single consonant out there, let me write this down for you all, so you all will be able to understand. Okay. So, chapter 31, verse 1, and I count every consonant in verse 1. For example, Vav, Yod, Dalet, Bet, Resh. Okay, and I count every single word, I get 18. 18 consonants in verse 1. Keep that count 18, very, very important. When I go to verse 2, let me see how many consonants I get in verse 2 now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. In verse 2, I get 36 consonants. In verse 3, I get 42 consonants. Now, why am I showing you all this? Because I want to show you all something very, very important out here. Embedded in these three verses is the secret of how God gave the wisdom and knowledge and understanding to Bezalel and Oholiav to build the Mishkan. And in the building of the Mishkan itself is the secret of all creation. There is a goal in everything that I want to show you all today, friends. So please hold on. It may take us a little longer time. It may go into little mathematics. It may go into geometry or mathematics, but please hold on. Okay, I'm trying my best. It's not easy on a platform like this to teach all these things, but nevertheless. Okay, so if I take 18, is the number 18 is equal to the word high. Those who are studying the Hebrew will understand what I'm talking about. Those who have not studied Hebrew is going to find it a little difficult, but hopefully you'll be able to catch on. 18 is high, that is 8 and 10, right? High. And what is high? Life. So we see in verse 8 where it says, Vaidaber Adonai el Moshe Le'amor, that when God spoke to Moses saying, that saying itself is life, it's high. That means God is talking life into everything, into existence, right? Then it says, I have called by name Bezalel, son of Uri. This 36 is a very important word because 36 is a 6 squared and it's a triangulate number of 8. The triangle of 8 is a 6 square. It's the only number after 1 where a triangle is equal to a square. No other number between 1 and 8 where you have a triangulated number is equal to a square. Okay, 6 squares, 36, and the value of 36 uh, is also a triangle of 8. Now 8 is het that represents high life again altogether. Hold on. 42. The number 42 is a very important number because 42 represents the 42 stations of Exodus. So that means when they came out of Egypt, they came, and by the time they entered into the land, there were 42 places that Israel journeyed and stayed in those 40 years. And each place had its own history, its own revelation of God. So 42 also is the name of God that represents these 42 stations. So what am I saying? Because when God asked Moses, "Oh, what is your name?" When he meets him in the burning bush, he says, "Iye asher iye." Okay, I am that I am. Okay, so when I take I am that I am, asher iye. So that is a ye, okay, into 2. Aye asher iye. This is equal to 21, and twice Ia into 2 is equal to 42. So I am that I am, when God says Ia Asher Ia, I am that I am. Fantastic, and that's equal to 42. So that number 42 represents something really amazing. But see what this verse says. This verse says, I've called by name Bezalel, son of Uri, son of Hur, with the tribe of Yehuda. No. Okay. I have filled him with godly spirit, with wisdom and with understanding and with knowledge and with every type of work to make calculations, to work the gold and all this is equal to this number, friends. It's really amazing when I look into all of this because numbers play such a big part in actually understanding all this. If I take the name Betzalel and I take the name, the number Oholiav, right? Oholiav and Betzalel. So because these two characters are the ones who are going to build everything, right? If I take Betzalel, Salel in English and write it in the Hebrew, okay, and Oholiav. This is equal to 49 and this is equal to 153 to be in short, okay. $49 is a very important number. I'm going to touch on that. I'm going to elaborate on what 49 is because this is where we're going to connect to parashot Terumah. And 153 is also a very important number. 153 is where you would find in the book of Isaiah, chapter 41, verse 13, where God says, Ki Adonai Elohecha, for I am the Lord your God. If you take the value of Ki Adonai Elohecha, I am the Lord your God, is equal to 153. And Betzalel, the value of his name is equal to 153. That means that Betzalel is in the shadow of God himself, because the word Betzalel, the name Betzalel itself is in the shadow of God. So Be in Tselem, okay, in the shadow, and El of God, okay, Betzalel. Brilliant, because 153 is the same equivalent of for I am the Lord your God. It's the same thing. So in other words, Betzalel was was given the highest level of Chokmah, Bina, and Da'at, and to be in the shadow of the Almighty means to be operating in such a high level of efficiency spiritually that you're able to take spiritual spiritual consciousness and convert it into physical form. And that kind of perception and that kind of intuition or divine inspiration is, I don't think s- people in this world have that kind of divine inspiration. Every human being can achieve that divine level of inspiration, like Bezalel, in consideration that God endows them with that. Okay, I'm sure God can give everybody the same, but are we ready? Now, we don't know whether Bezalel was ready or not, but he had to be appointed by God for that. So God appointed him. But maybe he was ready for this role. But I strongly believe also that each one of us have the potential, right? If God does give us that kind of perception, that intuition, that divine inspiration to operate on that level, to take conscious, spiritual consciousness and spiritual things and convert it into physical reality, whew, it's mind blowing when you think of it. Mind blowing. So that's Bezalel. What about Oholiav? Oholiav is equal to 49. What's so important about 49? Now, the word Oholiav is Ahal, Ohel, which is tent, right? The tent which they were building, that's the tent, and Av is father. So, literally, his name means father of the tent. Father of the tent, that means he was in charge of all the earthly matters and the symbolic meaning of what the Mishkan was going to be. So he represent the earthly side of the Mishkan, whereas Bezalel represented the bridge between the super consciousness and converting that into reality out here. So the spiritual and the physical friends. Absolutely brilliant. So this was the role between these two people. This was the role. And 42 also, I told you it's about the name of God. Now, mind you, what I'm telling you is each one of these things are a huge study by itself. I don't have the time to go through all this entire study with you all, because then, this is only if you take courses and we're able to sit down and do real mathematics and all, you'll understand these things. But just as a brief, I'm just giving all as to, how would you interpret, how do we know what's happening in the desert and about the Mishkan, and what is God actually doing with them? Okay, so let's now we've given to understand that Bezalel and Oholiab have been given the task to build the Mishkan, right? And what is the goal of the Mishkan? That's something we need to understand. Okay, so here we will jump to Parshat Terumah, and we're going to see something in Parshat Terumah. Asimji is going to be very happy today because he keeps complaining that I never write and teach. I've stopped doing that. Isn't it, Asim?
Yes, Rabiji. Really, Rabiji. I was very happy.
Okay, okay, great. So turn with me to Parshat Terumah, and we're going to study something really fabulous over there. And we're going to connect back to the 49. Okay, Parshat Terumah. Oh, Misphatim, sorry. Something really amazing, which all guys need to understand. No, I keep telling everybody it's not about preaching and motivating people. It's about study and learning, because Torah and Bible is studying and learning. Okay, so in Pasha Truma, that's in chapter 25, verse 1, the Lord spoke to Moses saying, speak to children of Israel and anybody who has a willing heart to please come and offer them gold, silver, all that's what's happening. And then it says in verse 8, it says, why a suli visham. and let them produce, not create. Let them produce a place for me. Let them make a place for me so that I may dwell inside of them. Vayasuli Mikdash Veshakhanti Betocham. I've done this before many years and many times over. Okay. And in the conformance with all that I show you. Okay. Bechol Asher Ani Merea Otecha et Tavnit Hamishkan Ve'et Tavnit Chol Hilav. And in all the things that I show you, how you are made and how you are built, that is the way you're going to make the Mishkan. So basically, God was showing Moses himself. He's saying, Moses, look at you, see how you're made. Look how wonderfully amazing that I've made you. Take that form and that structure and recreate the Mishkan in that way. And you instruct Bezalel and Oliav to do the same. Nevertheless, I've already given Bezalel and Oliav that innate knowledge to do everything. You don't have to supervise him. You just have to give it to him and he will do it. Okay, then it says, go a little ahead. They're building up the menorah, and it talks about the building of the tabernacle, right? In chapter 26 of Exodus. You shall make for the tabernacle a spread of 10 panels, twisted flax and turquoise wool, purple wool, and scarlet wool. Cherubim, the work of an artist. Okay, and it talks about the Mishkan, the wooden panels that have to be given. Okay, I wanted the calculation of. Okay, the Ark of the Testimony. Okay, chapter 26. Okay, in chapter 26, where are we? Okay, chapter 26 says, and you will take for the Mishkan, curtains in the sense you will take linen and you will make linen for the Mishkan, and the linen will be 28 cubits long by 4 cubits wide. Find this out there. Okay, so it is the curtains for the, not the curtain exactly, for to cover the Mishkan would be, the outer thing will be 28 by 4. Sorry, 28 by 4. And this you will have 5 and 5. So this will cover the outer section of the entire this thing. So if I look at what are this 28 and 4, right? 28, if I look at 28, it's a very important number because 28 now gives me a calculation of 28 is the triangle of 7. And we all know what 7 is, right? 7 stands for the 6 days of creation, the 7 days of Shabbat. Okay. 4 is also in the 4-letter name of God. But 4 in its combination also, the triangle of 4 is equal to the value of 10. Now, I can do the mathematics for you all, but I just want to avoid that right now. But 4 is equal to, the triangle of 4 is equal to 10. So 10 gives us the number of the 10 words of creation, right? God created everything in 6 days, but he spoke 10 words to create. the 10 words that were given at Sinai, which is the what we would call the 10 commandments. Okay, 10 also is the number of completion. Okay, and the list goes on and on and on and on. So embedded into this fabric that covers the outer portion of the Mishkan, God is putting the secrets of all creation into this, all the secrets of creation into this. This is the knowledge that was given to Bezalel to recreate something that is taking the super consciousness of the eternal and bring it into reality of where we are in this world, to taking the spiritual and converting it into matter and giving us something that is what we would call the Mishkan. But why Mishkan? Why do we have to build the Mishkan? That's what we need to understand. Then there is another section. God says, He tells, please read chapter 26 and parashot Terumah for y'all to follow up on what I'm saying. Okay. Another thing is that on the Mishkan, okay, I'm just drawing something which is, rough. The front portion was the holy place, and the rear portion was the holy of holies. But around to cover this, they had to have curtains. It was covered by curtains, right? Some excuse my drawing, friends. I'm not to this thing with thing. They had to cover with curtains, and these curtains, God says there were 11 in number, 11 curtains. And I was sitting and wondering why. I said, Lord, why 11 curtains? What's the idea about 11 curtains, right? And then I just looked at it and I said, saying, Lord, please show me why 11, such a weird, vague number 11. God showed me that the answer is in the Bible itself. God tells Moses that you will take 5 curtains at the back and 6 curtains in the front. So there's 5 and 6. The triangle of 5 and the triangle of 6 is equal to, the triangle of 5 is equal to 15. And the triangle of 6 is equal to 21. And you have the number 36, which is a 6 squared, which is a triangle of 8, where we get Het, and that represents life in Hebrew. Life. Right. So what were these curtains that were covering the Mishkan, covering the holy place and the holy of holy place? That number comes down to 8 again. And 8 is Chet, it's talking about life. So it was protecting something inside. And what was inside? It was the Ark of the Testimony. It was the presence of God Himself. The tree of life was there. But that brings me a big question now. That if what was inside in the Mishkan represented Chai and life and Chet, uh, the tree of life, right? Why was God telling them to build a Mishkan in the first place? What was this all about? The last time we heard about all of this was in the Garden of Eden. Because in the Garden of Eden, when they sinned and God took them out from the Garden of Eden, He placed 2 cherubim to guard the way to the tree of life. And we read in the same chapter that on these curtains that is separating the holy place from the uh, holy of holies and the outer this thing, the curtains and all the fabric that covered the tabernacle had embroidered 2 cherubim all over the place that were guarding the way to the tree of life. There was life inside the Mishkan. There was something inside. That's why the high priest could not go inside all the time. It was not easy. You had to be sanctified, separated. It needed a huge amount of spiritual tahor to enter into the holy place. The tabernacle was being protected by all of this. That is why God said that around the tabernacle you will have Moses and his sons, and then around the Misphatim and all those guys, the pale bearers and the water the guys and the woodworker guys and all this stuff. And after them you had the tribes of Israel. And after the tribes of Israel, you had the nations. It all centered around that center point that was the Holy of Holies that had the Aaron and the presence of God, the mercy seat that contained inside the Aaron, and that was the tree of life. My friends, that was life, that was Chai. It's very difficult for me to cram in so much of information to all of you all right now. But I'm just trying to give you all a gist as to what is happening out here. Now, on these curtains, embroidered on these curtains, why were the two cherubim there? What was the idea of the cherubim being there? What was the idea of it? Was that it resembled the same setting as the Garden of Eden. So effectively, now sin from the Garden of Eden, he expelled them from the garden, he blocked the way to the tree of life, and for 2000 years, humanity was on its own, and God raised up Abraham for a purpose to restart the process of going back to the Garden of Eden. So he took out Abraham, he promised him, gave him the covenants, made him a nation. That nation is going to be a nation of priests and high priests and holy people to God of Kadosh. And then they went into Egypt because the impurities had to be removed from Abraham and from his generations. Once the impurities were removed from them in Egypt, God brought them out via grace through the Passover lamb, through Pesach. It was only God's grace, nothing else. Brought them out, brought them to Sinai, and at Sinai, now God was elevating them back to the level of Garden of Eden. And God was giving Moses the instructions of how you rebuild the semblance of how the Garden of Eden actually was, but in an earthly way, not in a way. But why? Because God said that when I made this beautiful world and I gave you a beautiful garden and I gave you the wonders of creation, that you could come and meet me out there, you rebelled and you sinned, and therefore I had to take that gift away from you. I had to take that gift away from you. So God took away that gift and left man to the impurities of creation. And he said, now find your way back to me. But this time, there's going to be no relationship. You're going to come in through faith. Because when there's true da'at and knowing, thou shalt know the Lord your God. When there's knowing, faith practically ends out there. Faith came into a picture when there is no da'at, when there's no knowing. So the moment the knowing stopped, then we have to muster ourselves and say, I believe in God. I need to find faith. And that is the only way you can please God through faith. And faith now is something that I cannot see, cannot hear, cannot see, but I must believe that there is a God. Why? Because history tells me so. And the wonders of creation tells me so. But how do I reach that God? I have to come through faith because God has left me out into the wild. But when I come to know Him, then faith itself has it's finished its use. Now I know Him. But the moment I leave back and go back into the wild, faith starts kicks in again for me to come back to Him. Okay, I hope you're getting this. It's very, very important. So humanity is out into the wild, And now God wants to come back, wants to bring the world back to the Garden of Eden. So he takes this nation, brings them to Sinai. He's giving them this blueprint of the Mishkan, of everything. And he's saying, you know what? I gave it to you all then. It was ultimate. It was beautiful. There was no comparison to it. And you all rebelled against me. But as an act of your faith of coming back to me, you will build it this time. I am not going to build it. If you build it, that this is how you need to build it, and I will honor it, and I will come and I will dwell in the midst of you. But you will build it, not me. Because when I built it, you all destroyed it, that chapter's over. When they sinned and Moses broke the two stones, God says, Moses, now you make the stones and come on top. I am not going to make the stones and come on top. You know, it's like saying once bitten, twice shy. God has given his best. We rebelled against it. God said, I'm not going to do it now. Now I want you to show me that you really want to come back to me. That is what the Mishkan is, my friends. And God is laying it out before them and saying, build it. Therefore, everything we see about the Mishkan is about going back to Gan Eden, including the two cherubim that are embroidered on the curtains. So in Ki Tissa, now let's jump back to Ki Tissa. Towards the end of Ki Tissa, oh, this is big. In chapter 33, after giving all these instructions on what to do and what not to do, no, no, sorry, in chapter 32, chapter 32 says, and the people saw that Moses delayed in descending the mountain. And the people gathered around Aaron and said to him, rise up, make for us gods that will go before us. For this Moses, the man who brought us up from the land of Egypt, we do not know what has happened to him. So they catch Aaron, they put a sword to his neck, they stand and say, you either make us a god or you're dead. Right? Now, who are these people? They're called the Erev Raf. They're the people who came out with the Jewish people. They came out with the Jewish people. And they're the ones who instigated the children of Israel to do this in the desert. And many of them were sorcerers, people who practiced the magic arts, people who could manipulate creative energies of the universe. Egypt was full of this. They all came out. Egypt. When they seen Egypt being bombarded, darkness, hail, fire, stones, death all around, they said, we don't have any future out here. Opportunists. They came out with the Jewish people. But they came to Moses and said, Moses, take us. Moses pleaded with God, said, Lord, what about these people? What is your decision? He said, no, Lord. They also recognize you. We'll bring them. Moses brought them through. But here they played the card. See what Aaron says. He tells Moses, he says, I collected all the gold and I put into the fire, and behold, this golden calf came out. How does a golden calf come out on its own? Because these people were practicing witchcraft. They're the ones who used sorcery and witchcraft, and when the gold was thrown into the fire, through sorcery, they made that golden calf. Anyway, so when all this is done, God tells Moses, he says, they rose the next day and they sing. And the Lord spoke to Moses, verse 7 in 32. He says, go, descend, for the nation that you have brought out from Egypt has become evil. They have degenerated. God is saying, Moses, see the people that you brought out, the nation that you brought out. They are degenerated. They have strayed quickly from the way that I have commanded them. They made themselves a molten calf, prostrated themselves out from the land of Egypt. The Lord said to Moses, I have seen this people, and behold, it is a stiff necked people. And now leave me be. Let my anger burn against them, and I shall annihilate them, and I shall make you a great nation. Moses pleaded with God, great pleading. And then we know the story. Moses comes down, he sees them parting and reveling and doing all sorts of things. It's a different topic altogether. Uh, it's a huge topic that we can talk about because raising a consciousness to a spiritual level is what they were doing in a sick manner. And Moses comes there, he sees the contamination and the impurity, he breaks the stone, and then he takes that and he says, I got to go back on top. And then he goes back on top for another 40 days and he's pleading with God. God forgives, and God says, I'm not going to go with them now. My angel will go with them, because if I have to go with them, I will destroy them in a second. This is the turning point of everything. God waited till this point of bringing them to Sinai, giving them the Torah, allowing them to build the Mishkan so that God could rectify the world through that Mishkan and bring the entire world back to Eden. If they never sinned with the golden calf, then friends, you and me would have been living in a different world altogether. There would have been only the book of Leviticus. There would have been only the book of Leviticus and the Mishkan and about Genesis and about the laws and Torah, and that is it. There would have been nothing else. There would not have been kings, chronicles, prophets, Nevi'im, Ketu, nothing of the sort would have existed. You and me would have been living in a different world altogether. When this happened, it changed the dynamics of everything. So, where they were supposed to be brought back to the Garden of Eden, it fell flat on its face and back down again. Then God tells Moses, says, you do one thing, take them into the land. You stood as an intercession for them with me. Now it is your responsibility. All the Torah is given to you. Now go down. You bring the stones. I'm not going to give you the stones, because the first stones were stones of sapphire. The stones of sapphire were written with letters of fire inside, divine fire. That's what Moses broke. And by the way, this conception of these round stones which we find Moses carrying in Western theology is all rubbish. It's not that way. They were perfectly square cubes written on all sides. Listen to what I'm saying. It's not those things you find in those pictures and all. Ah, wow. It's not that. They're perfectly square cubes, and the Torah was written on all sides. Written with the finger of God, it was with fire, burning fire in blue sapphire stone. It was the most beautiful thing. And it broke, and when it broke, the presence and the fire of those words went back, returned back to the Father, and only the sapphire remained. And Moses gathered the sapphire stones, put it into the ark, rock, black, dirty rock. He took it on top and said, God, please write it. God, Moses, come on, I'll tell you again now, write it. He brings back normal stones. He puts that into the ark. So the point is, what I'm trying to tell you is all that we sing about the scatulations and Mishkan and this and that, it's all very high divine wisdom. God was giving it the final push to rectify the world. That push, God gave everything into it. And these guys with the golden calf, God said, sorry, Moses. Now you will take them into the land, you will teach them the Torah, and the responsibility is going to be on you. till the time of the rectification would come. Then from Moses, so many years, 1500 years, till our Lord Yeshua walked on this earth. And he took that Torah, which was given to Moses, that was supposed to be perfect then, and he perfected it by his life. He said, this is the way you live it. And when he lived it, he was able to enter into the Holy of Holies. But it took a huge Korban Khai on his behalf, by him, by his own life, laid down his own life. When he done that, that way to that Holy of Holies, to the tree of life, was opened now. So we're looking at very metaphysical, very mystical things in the Torah and the Bible. We've only touched the surface of things, my friends. Listen to me very, very carefully. Surface of things. In our courses, we sit and do all these, these calculations, and we teach a lot of other things also. Because Torah is, and if you look at the curtains, the colors, uh, the numbers, and it spoke to you all about different numbers, the name of God, all embedded in creation, all embedded in that Mishkan. So God was saying that this tabernacle that you're making is a resemblance of all of creation put out here. And in the middle of all that creation, I'm giving you a holy of holy place where I'm going to rest. I'm going to be there on the mercy seat, because this world needs mercy. This world it needs mercy. Now, Ki Tissa is so important because in our Shema course, I touched upon how one would practice Simcha, joy. The four levels of joy we read in the Bible, four levels of joy. Uh, Kedva, Gili, Simcha, and the fourth one is Sason, right? So in different levels of enjoying the presence of God. To have Kedva is that spurt, is that immediate joy one gets by saying, "Oh, great, awesome! Just so happy about it." Right? That's that initial joy. It doesn't last long. Is the word chedwa, which is the word that he was implored by God. His heart was lifted up. He had the joy and he converted. Then he recognized the God of Israel. After that is gili, a revelation of joy, where that joy pervades the heart, it starts pervading the mind, and you're filled for a time with just the knowing that you have peace and joy in your heart. A higher level is when you actually practice joy, simcha. Simcha, that means joy now is pervading all your body. Everything that you're doing, you're singing, you're like a beautiful instrument that's singing joy. In everything that you do, it's fruit. And sason is in the presence of God, ecstatic love. But simcha is not easy. It needs to be practiced. Why am I telling you this? Because the highest form of joy one experiences was when God told them in the book of Deuteronomy, he says, when you come into the land, you will be joyful. Now, come on. The question is that how can someone command me and tell me just be full of joy? Really? How can I be full of joyful? How can I just be full of joy? With all the things around me and all the problems around me, how am I supposed to be full of joy? Because I have to practice joy. I have to make it a part of my existence. When I practice joy, the anointing of God and God's Holy Spirit will be attracted to my joy and will co-join with me, and I'll be able to walk in His ways. But if I am not going to practice joy, then the Holy Spirit will not be attracted to me. He will come to me and he say, your mood is off today. I cannot communicate with you anymore. Walk away. We have to learn to practice and to attract God's presence. And that is Shekinah glory. The reason I'm telling you this is because the highest level of joy is not experiencing joy, it's knowing God. That means your joy is a filter of your mind when you experience God in His fullness. I know God. And that knowing, Chokmah, Bina, the art, you're experiencing Him in His fullness, you're understanding Him completely. Whew, that is a tremendous amount of joy. And that light that enters through your mind filters down throughout your entire body. And that filtering down gives you gili, it gives you simcha, it gives you sason, depending on your practice of cleaving, devkut, cleaving to your eternal Father. So this joy is a knowing. It's got to do with mochim, mind. It's got to do with sekhel, intelligence, alertness, self-awareness, zehirut, zerizut, alertness, alacrity, sharpness. And then you're experiencing joy because you're cleaving to God through His word. You're cleaving to God to the level of knowing. There is no commandment in the Bible to believe in the Lord your God. The Bible says, thou shalt know the Lord your God. So you know Him, and that is joy. So therefore, the biblical joy is here and upward. Any joy that you experience from here and below is not biblical. So the tingling in your hands, the sensation in different parts of your body, the ecstasy people exist and do things in life, it's not holy. One has to be careful not to arouse inferior joy that's coming from your senses and mistake it that you're connecting to God. That experience is not true. The only true experience is knowing the Lord your God. Therefore, humanity has always, in its own way, tried to, achieve something, whether through some form of religion, get a joy that's got to do with your physical body, or whether through doing acts of charity, whether through doing, mystical transcendental meditation and going deep into your nefesh, going into yourself. There is a certain amount of joy and calmness out there also. But it's not the joy that the Bible talks about. So people have practiced meditation, transcendental in different states of consciousness, you're still going to on that. All that connects back to one simple point of existence. And everything that your body experiences as joy, not your mind, is got to do with sexual energy. So you can arouse yourself to different levels, and humanity always practice this in different forms. Now, I want you to hear me very, very carefully. One has to be very careful even when we go to worship centers, to congregations, and you see different types of what's happening. Okay, uh, one has to know to differentiate between cleaving to God in the right way or experiencing something in your body, because that's not simcha. Simcha filters down. It's a different thing altogether. Okay, so keep your eyes and ears open. Now, what were these guys doing at Sinai? What were they doing at Sinai? When they felt the vacuum, as a topic, when they felt the vacuum that Moses has disappeared, he's there in the mountain with God. We don't know what he's doing. what has happened, whether he's alive or he's dead. I'm helpless. So they conjured up something, and they were trying to achieve that level of, okay, let me reach back to God now. Let me call him down. Let me reach. And humanity has always done this. Every human has this vacuum inside of him. It can come out in the form of, drugs, alcohol, perversion, disorders, mental illnesses, eating disorders, lifestyle issues and diseases. It's all trying to compensate for wanting something more than you. And all this needs to be brought into subjection because God was showing them how to cleave to Him in a different way while they were not willing to do that. They were still stuck in the nephesh and still stuck in the flesh. And this is what they done at Mount Sinai. And then God said, they're not ready. Moses, they're not ready. Go with them. Take them into the land. I am not going to come with them because this is not going to work out. So for 1500 years, everything was Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu, scribes, the Pharisees, the Purushim, the Tzaddukim, everything evolved and evolved and evolved till it came to the first temple era. And then comes Yeshua, walks into the temple and says, hello, this is not the way you do it. This is the way you keep the Torah. Who is to listen to him? Nobody. So he kept the Torah perfectly. He utilized the Torah to its perfection. When he perfected it, he tell him, look at me, this is the way you do the Torah. And he was able to break through for He was able to break through. And that started a different chapter now of taking the Torah to a different level altogether. So at Sinai, why was this story so important? The story is important because what should have returned back to the Garden of Eden never happened. And then started all the complication, and everything was a catch up. And by the time we come to the book of Deuteronomy, 40 years later, Moses is old, he's complaining, he's tired, he cannot take it anymore. His relationship with God is not good. God tells him to go and speak to the rock. He goes and whacks it. God said, who asked you to hit the rock? I told you to speak to it. He's frustrated. He cannot handle it anymore. And he's complaining to God. He says, God, I cannot carry these people. In fact, the book of Deuteronomy is constantly telling the people. The reason he relates everything back to them in one way is because he's telling them, see what you all have done. I'm not able to enter the land because you all have put me in this position. How long am I to bear you all? He keeps complaining. And he complains to God. He says, how long am I going to bear these people? God says, well, you stood in the gap. Now you better do it. Very intelligent, right? We just love to pray to God. God, do this and I'll do this and I promise you this. God says, I'm going to hold you responsible one day. I am. God is going to hold us responsible for every pledge, every vow, everything that we do. He is. And then Moses had to carry this. But by the time it came to Yeshua, the essence of everything was, of the unfiltered Torah of Sinai that God was giving and returning back to Garden Eden was lost. Therefore, we look forward to the book of Revelations now, or the Hidgalut. And when you're reading the book of Revelations, you're looking at Revelations in a way that is bringing back the heavenly Jerusalem all over again. Chapter 21 of Hidgalut. What is Revelations all about, friends? It's about bringing back Garden of Eden all over again on this earth. Do you know how many times God would have tried and people would have failed him? And he's still not giving up on humanity, friends. God is still not giving up on humanity. Please make a note of these things. Now, if we do have time, I am going to open out all the calculations from the book of Exodus. This is very, very important. All that we studied about the triangulate numbers and the square numbers, and I will show you all how embedded into the Mishkan by all its calculations is the secret of all creation. So God was recreating a semblance of creation by giving them the Mishkan. Can you imagine what a huge task that is? And putting in place out there a place that where the tree of life would be there as on that mercy seat and say, "Come, come." The world would have been rectified. And then he gave Moses in the book of Leviticus, when all this is done, right? The building is done, the tevuna is done, the architecture is done, the implements and the brazen altar and all that is done in place. Then the book of Leviticus comes in and it talks about the kehuna. It talks about how the priests and the Levites were supposed to conduct everything. Now, there in the book of Leviticus is the start, actually, is the root of the gospel that you read in the book of Matthew or in the New Testament. Because the gospel has to start in the book of Leviticus. And many times I've done this and I spoke about Korban Khai. And if you all don't know about Korban Khai, please see the earlier videos about Korban Khai and you all will know what it is. And then God gave, when everything is ready and in place, God to Moses, He says, "Now Moses, if any man wants to come close to me, let him bring himself as a living sacrifice to me." Who would perfect this process? Who is of the caliber to process the to perfect the process? For the book of Isaiah says, God seen and he thought that none were able to do that. Therefore, his right arm brought salvation for him. When God seen that no man was able to complete this process of coming back. Therefore, the gospel starts here. You see now everything is embedded into all of this. And believe me that Mishkan was a place that was built by Moses and by Bezalel and Eliab was not a simple place. You just cannot enter into that Mishkan if you feel like it. You would rest, drop down dead. The inner portions of the Mishkan were literally existing out of time and space. And I'm saying this confidently because the Bible indirectly tells you this. If they never sinned with the golden calf, you would have had a different world. The world would have been rectified. And I don't know what a beautiful world this would have been, friends. But then the story carries on after that. And then we have the whole history of the full, thick Bible with us only because of the sin of the golden calf that comes in parashot Ki Tissa. But to make you all understand what exactly happening, I had to cover so many parshas, do a lot of deep, intrinsic work of the Torah. We read the Old Testament when we really don't know what it is, right? Because this is not a foundation. Coming from the nations, coming from going, this is not a foundation, friends. It's not a foundation. But praise God, thank God, we are open to all these things. Now, when we do open our courses, we'll be doing a lot of courses that have got to do with understanding about gematria, about uh, science and Torah. And science and Torah is huge because everything is embedded in the Torah, friends. Okay, so please do get in touch with us whenever we have our courses. And uh, we don't have the time to get into many things, but I hope you'll have been blessed. I hope you'll understand the whole plan of God. The whole plan of God is so beautiful, but we take snippets of it and use it for our own, for our own theologies. And each one is so rebellious that we create our own theologies and we don't look at the whole picture, my friends. I urge everybody, humble yourself and just listen to the whole picture, understand the whole picture, and see what God is doing to rectify all of humanity. And ask God for wisdom, Chokmah, Bina, and the earth. And ask Him, say, Lord, show me the whole picture. Because until I don't see the whole picture, I will not know you, Lord. And teach me how to cleave to you the right way. Anything that's got to do with the flesh, and Lord, it's not going to be cleaving to you. So I leave you all with these thoughts today, friends. I hope you all have been blessed. I hope uh, this teaching has really moved you all, and God has spoken to you all. And to repeat next time, Shabbat Shalom and God bless. Have a wonderful evening in Yeshua's name. God bless.